on a distant world bathed in the soft, golden glow of twin suns, where trees grew taller than mountains and their leaves shimmered like stained glass. A lone human named Joran scraped out his days in silence. The planet, known to forgotten star charts as Veora, was a place of breathtaking beauty and relentless danger. Its forests dense with bioluminescent vines that pulsed like heartbeats, its rivers flowing with liquid silver that sang when disturbed. Joran had not come here by choice. His ship, a battered freighter called the Dust Mite, had crash-landed 3 years ago during a solar storm, scattering wreckage across a valley of crystal flowers. He was the only survivor. Since then, he had lived like a ghost, eating strange tubers, drinking dew from giant ferns, sleeping in hollowed-out tree trunks, and always watching the shadows. The forest was never quiet. Creatures with too many eyes and not enough bones slithered through the undergrowth. Birds with metallic feathers screamed warnings in languages he couldn't understand. And sometimes, in the dead of night, he heard something else. Something that moved with purpose, like a storm with footsteps. Joran had changed since the crash. His clothes were patched with leaves and animal hide. His beard was wild, streaked with dirt and the ash of old fires. His hands were calloused, his body lean and scarred. But his mind remained stubbornly human, curious, sarcastic, and oddly hopeful. He talked to himself often, mostly to keep the loneliness at bay. "Well, Joran," he'd say while trying to spear a slippery river eel, "if you die today, at least you'll be the first human buried in a planet that thinks dirt is optional." He laughed at his own jokes because no one else would. He'd built traps from vines and salvaged metal, learned which mushrooms made you see visions. Fun, but not worth the screaming. And how to outrun the 6-legged predators that hunted at dusk. Still, survival was a daily war, and Joran was tired of winning by inches. One morning, as mist curled around the roots of a colossal tree, known to him as Grandfather Bark, Joran spotted tracks in the soft moss. They weren't like any animal he'd seen. 3 long toes, each ending in a claw mark, and a deep impression where the heel pressed down with immense weight. He followed them, not out of bravery, but because his last trap had caught nothing, and hunger made him reckless. The trail led deeper into the forest, where the air grew thick with the scent of blooming night thorns, flowers that only opened when danger was near. His heart thumped as he crept forward, every nerve alight. Then he saw her. She stood like a statue carved from moonlight and emerald. Tall, with skin the color of fresh moss and hair like spun frost, she was unlike anything Joran had ever imagined. Her body was lean and powerful, wrapped in armor made of interlocking scales that shifted color like oil on water. A longbow, taller than Joran himself, was slung across her back, its string glowing faintly blue. Her eyes, large, almond-shaped and silver, scanned the trees with a predator's calm. She didn't notice him at first, too focused on the trail of a massive beast whose claw marks tore through the bark of trees like paper. Joran froze, caught between awe and terror. Was she a god? A ghost? Or just another monster with better fashion sense? Before he could decide, the ground shook. A roar split the air, a sound so deep it vibrated in Joran's chest. From the shadows burst a creature the size of a rhino, but with 6 legs, a mouth full of rotating teeth, and eyes that burned red like dying coals. It charged straight at the alien huntress. Without flinching, she spun, drew an arrow from a quiver at her hip, and fired. The arrow didn't fly. It screamed, trailing blue fire as it struck the beast between the eyes. There was a flash, a crack like thunder, and the creature collapsed, twitching, before dissolving into a pool of bubbling black sludge. Joran gasped and stumbled back, tripping over a root and landing hard on his rear. The huntress turned slowly, her silver eyes locking onto him. He scrambled to his feet, hands raised. "I'm not food," he blurted. "I mean, I'm not prey. I'm a person, a human, from Earth. Third planet, blue, used to have trees before we ruined them." He babbled, half expecting her to shoot him next. But she didn't. She tilted her head, studying him like a puzzle. Then, to his shock, she spoke. Not in words, but in a series of melodic clicks and hums that resonated in the air like wind through chimes. Joran blinked. No, don't speak chime. Sorry." She stepped closer, her movements graceful, almost floating. She reached out, not with a weapon, but with her hand, and gently touched his forehead. A warm pulse spread through his skull, and suddenly he understood. "You are not of this world. Her voice echoed in his mind, clear and calm. You are small, weak, alone. Joran bristled. Hey, I've been surviving just fine, thank you. 3 years. No Wi-Fi, no coffee, no complaints. She blinked slowly. Then a strange thing happened. Her lips twitched. Was she smiling? You amuse me, little Earthwalker. You should be dead 10 times over. Joran crossed his arms. Yeah, well, I've got a talent for disappointing death. She laughed then. A soft, chiming sound that made the birds fall silent. I am Silra, daughter of the Vale clan, huntress of the verdant vale. You are... What is your name? Joran, he said, suddenly feeling very small. Just Joran. Silra looked at him for a long moment, then nodded. You will come with me. Wait, what? No, I don't think so. I've got my cave, my traps, my weird glowing mushrooms. You will die if you stay, she interrupted. The Shadow Maw hunts this forest now. It devours everything. Even you, with your creative survival methods. Joran frowned. Shadow Maw? Is that what that thing was? That was a pup, she said simply. Joran's stomach dropped. A pup? She nodded. The mother is near, and she is hungry. He swallowed hard. Okay, new plan. I come with you, but only because I like living, not because you're bossy. So began the strangest journey of Joran's life. Silra moved like a whisper through the forest, her feet barely touching the ground. Joran, in contrast, tripped over roots, startled glowing frogs, and once accidentally set off a vine that sprayed sticky sap all over his face. This is why your kind doesn't survive long here, Silra mused, handing him a leaf that dissolved the goo. You're loud, clumsy, full of questions. And you're rude? Joran shot back, wiping sap from his eyebrows. Do all aliens talk to humans like we're toddlers? Only the ones who act like them, she replied, her eyes glinting with amusement. As they traveled, Joran learned more about Veora. It was a living world, Silra explained, where the forest itself was aware in a way he couldn't fully grasp. The trees shared memories through their roots. The rivers carried songs from ancient times. And the huntresses, like her, were guardians, sworn to keep balance between life and death. We do not kill for sport, she said as they paused by a waterfall that flowed upward into the sky. We hunt only what must be hunted. The sick, the corrupted, the ones that disrupt the song. The song? Joran asked. Yes, the great hum. It is the pulse of the planet. When it falters, we know danger comes. Joran listened. First, he heard nothing. Then, beneath the rustle of leaves and the chirp of insects, he felt it. A low, steady vibration, like a heartbeat beneath the soil. Ha, he said. I think I like it here, if I ignore the part where everything wants to eat me. They reached Silra's village at dusk, a cluster of tree homes woven into the canopy, connected by bridges of living vine. The structures pulsed with soft light, and the air smelled of honey and rain. The other huntresses were like her, green-skinned, white-haired, tall and fierce. They stared at Joran with curiosity, some with suspicion. One even growled when he sneezed. They've never seen a human, Silra explained. You are strange to them. Hair on your face, weak limbs, odd smell. Gee, thanks, Joran muttered. I bathe in the singing river. Okay? It's not my fault you all smell like mint and thunderstorms. Life in the village was unlike anything Joran had known. He was given a tree home of his own, though he nearly fell out of it the first night trying to climb the spiral vine ladder. He ate food that changed color as he chewed and drank a tea that made him see his childhood dog for 3 hours. The huntresses taught him simple Veoran words. Keth for water, Vrail for fire, Shun for peace. He tried to teach them earth jokes, but none of them laughed until he slipped on a mossy rock and yelled, I meant to do that. Then they all chimed in laughter, a sound like bells in a storm. But not everyone welcomed him. A huntress named Maelise, with eyes like frozen mercury and a scar across her cheek, watched him with open distrust. He is a blight, she told Silra one evening. A weak creature from a dead world. He brings imbalance. Silra stood firm. He is under my protection, and he has survived much. That is not weakness, it is resilience. Maelise sneered. Resilience without skill is just suffering. Joran, eavesdropping from a nearby branch, felt a pang of shame. Was that all he was? A burden? A joke? He decided to prove himself. The next morning he asked Silra to teach him to hunt. She raised an eyebrow. You cannot even climb a tree without falling. I'll learn, he said stubbornly. I want to help, not just eat your food and tell bad jokes. Silra studied him, then nodded. Very well. But know this, the forest does not forgive mistakes. Training was brutal. The bow was too heavy. The arrows refused to fly straight. His first attempt to track an animal ended with him chasing a harmless, six-eyed squirrel for an hour. It looked suspicious, he defended. Silra sighed. You must learn to listen to the forest. Not just see it. Feel it. She placed his hand on a tree trunk. Close your eyes. Breathe. Joran did. First nothing. Then, slowly he sensed something. A faint pulse, like a whisper in the wood. A memory. A warning. Something's coming, he whispered. Silra smiled. Good. You are learning. Days passed. Joran grew stronger. He learned to move quietly, to read the signs in the moss, to shoot an arrow that at least hit the same tree as the target. He even managed to bring down a small, rabbit-like creature with glowing eyes. When he presented it to Silra, she inspected it carefully. You missed the heart, but you did not panic. That is progress. Joran grinned. High praise from the mighty huntress. She rolled her eyes, but he saw the hint of pride in her gaze. Then came the night the forest screamed. It started with the birds. They fell silent. Then the trees began to shiver, their leaves curling inward. The great hum stuttered, then dropped to a low, pained groan. Silra woke first, leaping from her home with bow in hand. Joran stumbled out, heart pounding. What's happening? The shadow maw, she said, her voice tight. She's here, and she's angry. The beast emerged from the mist like a nightmare given form. Twice the size of the pup, it moved on 8 spindly legs, its body a shifting mass of darkness and jagged bone. Its face was a gaping void, and where eyes should be, there were only swirling pits of red light. It let out a shriek that shattered the air, and the huntresses rallied, arrows glowing as they took position. Joran froze. This wasn't a predator. This was something worse, something unnatural. It's not of this world, Silra said, her voice grim. It came from the rift. Corruption. And it hungers. Then let's send it back to wherever it came from, Joran said, grabbing a spare bough. Silra looked at him. You cannot fight this. I can try, he said. You taught me to listen. I heard the forest. Scared. But it's also strong. And so am I. For a moment, she said nothing. Then she nodded. Stay behind me, and do not get eaten. The battle was chaos. Arrows of blue fire struck the beast, only to be absorbed into its shadowy hide. It lashed out with tendrils of darkness, knocking huntresses from the trees. One was swallowed whole, her scream cut short. Joran fired arrow after arrow, his hands shaking, his breath coming in gasps. He wasn't hitting anything. He wasn't helping. He was just in the way. Then he saw it, the beast's core. Deep within its chest, a pulsing red orb, like a diseased heart. It flickered with each shriek. That's it, he thought. That's the weak spot. But no one could get close. The huntresses were being pushed back, their formation breaking. Joran remembered something Silra had said. The forest remembers. It shares. He dropped his bow, ran to the nearest tree, and pressed his hands against the bark. Help me, he whispered. I don't belong here, but I want to protect this place. Just this once. Let me be part of the song. Silence. Then a hum. Stronger this time. The tree beneath his palms glowed. Vines snaked out, wrapping around his arms, not to trap him, but to lift him. Higher. Faster. The forest was carrying him. He soared above the battlefield, the wind in his face, the song in his bones. Below, Silra looked up, her silver eyes wide with wonder. He reached into his belt and pulled out the last arrow. A special one Silra had given him, tipped with crystal from the heart of a dead star. For when you find your courage, she'd said. Now he knocked it, drew the bow with all his strength, and aimed not at the beast's body, but at its core. Time slowed. He released. The arrow flew, trailing light like a comet. It struck the red orb dead center. There was a sound like 1,000 mirrors breaking. The shadow maw shrieked. Not in rage, but in agony. Its body convulsed, the darkness peeling away like burnt paper. Then, with a final wail, it collapsed into ash, blown away by the wind. Silence. Then the forest sang. The great hum returned, stronger than before, pulsing through the trees, the ground, the very air. The huntresses lowered their bows, staring at Joran as he landed softly on a vine platform, the broken bow still in his hand. Silra walked to him, her expression unreadable. Then, without a word, she placed her hand over her heart and bowed deeply. One by one, the others followed. Joran blinked. You don't have to do that. I kinda just got lucky." Silra rose, her eyes shining. "Luck does not command the forest. You listened. You became part of the song. That is not luck. That is belonging." He didn't know what to say. His legs were shaking. His heart was racing. But for the first time since the crash, he didn't feel alone. Days turned into weeks. Joran stayed in the village, no longer an outsider, but a guest with honor. The huntresses still teased him, especially when he tried to dance at the Moon Bloom Festival and accidentally set a ceremonial vine on fire. But there was warmth in their laughter now. Melis even nodded at him once, which Silra said was practically a declaration of love in huntress terms. He and Silra grew closer, not in the way of Earth stories, with grand declarations and sweeping romance, but in quiet moments. Sharing tea under the stars, walking the forest paths, her teaching him the old songs, him teaching her the lyrics to Sweet Caroline. "Hands, hands, hands," she'd sing laughing. He noticed the way she watched him when she thought he wasn't looking, and he noticed how his chest tightened when she smiled. One evening, as they sat on a high branch watching the twin suns set in a blaze of purple and gold, Silra turned to him. "You could stay," she said softly. "Not as a guest, as one of us. The forest has accepted you. So have I." Joran looked at her moss-green skin, her white hair glowing in the twilight, her silver eyes full of something he couldn't name but desperately wanted. I don't know," he said honestly. "Earth is gone for me, but this place, your world, it's so much bigger than I ever dreamed." She touched his hand. "And you are bigger than you think." He didn't answer that night, but as he lay in his tree home, listening to the great hum, feeling the pulse of a living world around him, he knew one thing. He wasn't just surviving anymore. And somewhere, deep in the uncharted wilds, the forest whispered his name like a promise. The peace did not last. It began with a dream, a vision that clawed its way into Joran's sleep like a living thing. He stood in a vast, black desert beneath a sky without stars. Before him loomed a tower of obsidian, its surface etched with symbols that pulsed like open wounds. From within came a voice, low and ancient, speaking in a language that wasn't sound but pressure, pressing against his skull. "You are not forgotten," it whispered. "You are chosen. Return to the rift. Open the way." He woke gasping, his body drenched in sweat, his hands trembling. The great hum, usually a steady rhythm, now stuttered, uneven, anxious. He climbed to the highest branch of his tree home and scanned the horizon. Nothing. Yet the forest felt different. The air was thick, the light dimmer, as if Veora itself were holding its breath. Silra found him there at dawn, wrapped in a cloak of woven moss. "You dreamed of the dark spire," she said, not a question. Joran turned to her, startled. "How did you?" "The forest shares its dreams with the huntresses," she replied. "That place, it is not of Veora. It is a wound between worlds. And it has touched you." He swallowed hard. "I didn't ask for this. I just wanted to survive." Silra stepped closer. "Survival is no longer your only path. The dream means something. The spire called you." He wanted to deny it, but deep down, he knew. The crash hadn't been an accident. 3 years ago, as the dust mite tumbled through the solar storm, Joran had seen something on the scanners. A distortion in space. A tear shaped like a screaming mouth. The ship's AI had labeled it Anomalous Rift, Class X. Then, just before impact, the coordinates had changed. Not random drift, calculated, as if something had pulled them in. Now, he wondered, had he been brought here on purpose? Against Silra's advice, Joran returned to the crash site. The wreckage of the dust mite was half swallowed by roots, its metal frame now threaded with glowing vines. But the black box, the final recorder, was still intact. With shaking hands, he pried it open and activated the playback. Static. Then, his own voice, panicked. "Something's on the hull. It's not debris. It's moving. It's..." A scream. Then silence. But not true silence. Beneath it, a faint, rhythmic pulse identical to the great hum. And then, a new voice, not human, not Veoran, but mechanical, layered with something organic. Subject acquired. Genetic resonance confirmed. Initiate integration phase. Joran dropped the device. His blood turned to ice. He wasn't just a survivor. He was a test. A specimen. The crash, the forest, even his survival. It might all have been part of a plan. But whose? When he returned to the village, he found chaos. The huntresses were gathered around a clearing where a massive tree, the heartbloom, oldest in the forest, had turned black. Its bark cracked and oozed a tar-like substance. Its leaves fell like dead ash. The great hum had gone silent in that spot, replaced by a low, guttural thrum that made Joran's teeth ache. Silra stood at the center, her face grim. "The corruption has spread," she said. "It's not natural. It's being drawn here." Joran stepped forward. "By what?" She turned to him, her silver eyes searching. "By you." The word struck like a blade. "What?" he whispered. "The forest sensed it first," she said. "Your presence carries a foreign echo, a resonance. And now, the corruption follows it like a scent. The dark spire isn't just calling you, Joran. It's claiming you." Melis stepped forward, her voice sharp. "He is a vector, a breach. We should cast him out before the forest dies." "No," Silra said firmly. "He did not choose this. And he fought the Shadow Maw. He is not our enemy." "Then what is he?" Melis challenged. "A weapon? A key? You protect him. But you do not know what sleeps inside him." Joran looked down at his hands. Were they still his? Or had something else already taken root? That night, he tried to leave. He packed a small bag with supplies, wrote a note, "Don't follow me. I don't want to hurt anyone," and slipped into the forest. But the trees wouldn't let him go. Vines curled around his ankles. Roots rose like hands from the soil. The forest held him. And then, Silra appeared, silent as mist. "You think running will save us?" she asked. "The spire doesn't care where you are. It cares that you exist." He turned to her, eyes wet. "Then what do I do? Let it take me? Let it destroy this place?" She stepped forward, placed a hand on his chest. "You fight, not with arrows or fire, but with who you are. The forest chose you. That means you have a role in this, even if you don't understand it yet." He wanted to believe her, but doubt gnawed at him. The next morning, a scout returned with terrible news. A second village, 2 days' journey east, had been consumed. Not by beasts, not by fire, but by silence. Every tree, every creature, every huntress, turned to blackened statues, frozen mid-motion, their faces twisted in silent screams. At the center of the ruins stood a single obsidian spike, pulsing with red light. The spire was coming. Silra called a council. The huntresses argued. Some wanted to flee, others to fight. A few, led by Melis, demanded Joran be bound and taken to the edge of the world. "Sacrifice one to save many," she said coldly. "It is the old way." Joran stood in silence, waiting for Silra to speak. But she didn't defend him. Instead, she said, "There is another path. The Shrine of Echoes, deep in the mist canyons. It is said that those who enter can see the truth of their soul. If Joran is truly corrupted, the shrine will reveal it. If he is not, then perhaps it will show us how to stop the spire." Melis sneered. "Superstition. We need action, not visions." "Then go," Silra said. "Take your hunters. Face the spire. See how far you get." The challenge hung in the air. Melis hesitated, then bowed her head. "We will wait. But if the shrine reveals danger, he dies." The journey to the mist canyons was a trial. The land grew twisted, trees bent at unnatural angles, rivers flowing uphill, gravity shifting in sudden bursts. Strange whispers echoed in the fog, voices that sounded like Joran's own, saying things he'd never said. "You are alone. You are weak. You were never meant to survive." Silra stayed close, her presence a shield against the madness. "The canyon tests the mind," she warned. "It shows you your fears. Do not believe them." At the heart of the ravine stood the shrine, a ring of standing stones covered in glowing runes. In the center, a pool of liquid light. "Step in," Silra said. "The truth will find you." Joran hesitated. "What if I don't like what I see?" "Then you face it," she said. "That is courage." He stepped into the pool. The world dissolved. He was back on Earth, a child, running through a field of golden grass. His mother called his name. Laughter, sunlight, then darkness. A lab, men in white coats, needles, pain, a voice. Subject J7 shows promising integration. Begin Phase 2. Memories flooded back, memories erased. He hadn't just been a freighter pilot. He had been created, a bioengineered human, part of a secret program to build soldiers who could survive extreme environments. His DNA spliced with alien fragments recovered from a crashed vessel, a vessel from Veora. That was why the rift had pulled him in. That was why the forest responded to him. He wasn't just a survivor. He was part of it. The vision shifted. He saw the dark spire, not as a tower, but as a machine, a prison built by an ancient race to contain a being of pure entropy, a devourer of worlds. But the prison was failing, and the spire needed a key to open fully, a key with Veoran blood and human resilience. It needed him. The pool released him. He collapsed into Silra's arms, sobbing. I'm not just me. I'm made, designed. My whole life lies. She held him tight. It does not matter how you were made, only who you are, and you are the one who saved the forest. That is real. But before they could return, the ground split. From the canyon walls emerged figures, tall, armored, their bodies half metal, half flesh, eyes glowing red. The guardians of the rift, the same ones who had pulled his ship down. They spoke in the same mechanical organic voice from the recording. Integration complete. Return to the spire. Fulfill your purpose. Silra drew her bow. Run, she told Joran. I'll hold them. No, he said, standing. This ends now. He stepped forward, hands open. I know what I am, and I know what I won't be. The lead guardian tilted its head. You cannot resist. You are ours. Maybe I was, Joran said, but not anymore. He closed his eyes and reached out, not to the forest, but to the memory of it, to the great hum, to Silra's voice, to the taste of singing tea, the warmth of the twin suns, the sound of huntresses laughing at his terrible jokes. And the forest answered. Vines erupted from the canyon walls, wrapping around the guardians, pulling them into the earth. Trees bent like fists smashing through metal. The pool of light surged, forming a wave that engulfed the machines, dissolving them into sparks. But the victory was short-lived. From the sky, a rift tore open, a jagged wound in reality. And from it descended the spire itself, floating, its red core pulsing like a heart. The final battle had begun. Silra grabbed Joran's hand. Whatever happens, she said. I'm glad I found you. He squeezed back. Even if I'm part alien lab experiment? Especially because of it. Above them, the spire began to sing. A sound that unraveled the mind. The forest screamed. The huntresses would come. The fight would be terrible. But Joran was no longer afraid. Because he was not just a man. He was a bridge. And bridges are meant to be crossed. The spire loomed above the canyon like a nightmare made real. Its obsidian surface drinking in the light, its core pulsing with a sickly red glow that sent waves of dread through the forest. The air itself trembled, and the great hum, once a steady song of life, now faltered like a dying breath. Veora was being unmade, piece by piece, as the spire's song reached into the roots of the world and twisted them. But Joran stood firm. He no longer trembled, no longer doubted. The truth of his origin, the lab, the lies, the engineered blood, had once shattered him. But now he saw it differently. He wasn't a mistake. He wasn't a weapon. He was a fusion of human heart and alien legacy, of survival and song. And that made him something new, something the spire could not control. Silra stood beside him, bow in hand, her silver eyes blazing with defiance. Whatever you plan, she said, do it fast. The forest is weakening. Joran nodded. I need to get inside. The core, it's not just a machine. It's alive, trapped, and it's screaming. Then we free it, she said simply. Together. They didn't wait for the others. The huntresses would come, yes, but this fight could not be won with arrows alone. It needed a bridge. And Joran was that bridge. Using the last of the forest's strength, vines erupted from the canyon floor, coiling around Joran and Silra like living ropes, launching them upward in a spiraling ascent toward the floating spire. The air grew thin, the song louder, threatening to shatter their minds. Silra clung to him, her voice cutting through the chaos. Don't let it take you. Remember who you are. He did. As they crashed through the spire's outer shell, the world inside was not metal or stone, but memory. A vast, shifting landscape of forgotten lives, lost worlds, and imprisoned souls. At its center floated a being of light and sorrow, bound in chains of dark energy. It was not evil. It was broken. A guardian, like the huntresses, who had tried to seal the rift long ago, and failed. The spire wasn't its weapon. It was its prison. You feel like home, the being whispered into Joran's mind. You carry the blood of Veora. You can break the chains. Then I will, Joran said. But not to destroy, to heal. With Silra guarding him, arrows of blue fire holding back the spire's defenses. Shadows that lunged like wolves. Joran stepped forward and placed his hands on the chains. He didn't fight them. He sang. Not in words, not in any language, but in the rhythm of the great hum, the pulse of the forest, the laughter of huntresses, the warmth of a shared fire, the quiet peace of waking beside someone you love. He sang of earth, of loss, of survival, of finding home where you least expect it. And the forest sang with him. Tree by tree, vine by vine, creature by creature, the living world of Veora joined the song. The huntresses, arriving on swift vines, added their voices. Even Melis, standing at the edge of the battlefield, closed her eyes and hummed. A single, pure note. The chains cracked, the light being rose, radiant, free. With a final, thunderous note, it turned toward the rift and pushed. The spire shattered, not with explosion, but with release. A cascade of light that washed over Veora like a tide. The blackened trees bloomed anew. The silent villages stirred, their frozen inhabitants blinking back to life. The great hum returned, stronger, brighter, joyful. And the rift closed. Joran and Silra fell from the sky, only to be caught by a net of glowing vines, gently lowered to the forest floor. The huntresses surrounded them, not in anger, not in awe, but in family. Melis stepped forward, placed a hand on Joran's shoulder, and bowed, fully, deeply. You are not of our blood, she said, but you are of our heart. Time passed, the forest healed, the villages rebuilt, and Joran, once a lonely survivor, became something no one could have predicted. Kethvarin, the green-blooded one, the singer of worlds. But the greatest change was not in titles or legends. It was in the quiet mornings. In a new tree home, woven high in the branches of a reborn heart bloom, Joran woke to the soft glow of dawn filtering through leaves that shimmered like stained glass. Beside him, Silra slept, her white hair spread like frost on silk, her green skin warm in the light. He watched her, heart full. They had faced the end of the world, and chosen life. Later that day, beneath the great canopy where the huntresses gathered, Joran stood with Silra before the circle of roots, the ancient rite of union. Vines bloomed with star-shaped flowers. The air hummed with the forest's blessing. Melis herself officiated, her voice solemn, yet kind. By the song of the world, by the bond of heart and hunt, we weave two lives into one. Not by blood, but by choice. Not by fate, but by love. They clasped hands. They sang the union chant, their voices blending with the wind. And when the final note faded, the entire forest erupted in light. Flowers blooming, rivers glowing, birds singing in harmony. They were married. And in the years that followed, peace settled over Veora like a gentle rain. Joran taught the young huntresses how to laugh, how to tell stories, how to make coffee from roasted roots. It tasted like dirt, but they drank it anyway. Silra trained him in the old ways, and together, they patrolled the wilds not as conquerors, but as guardians. And one spring morning, when the twin suns rose in golden harmony, a child's cry echoed through the village. A daughter, small, with skin the soft green of new leaves and hair like spun sunlight. Neither fully human nor fully Veoran, but perfectly both. They named her Leora, Song of Two Worlds, and as Joran held her in his arms, watching Silra smile with tears in her silver eyes, he knew. This was not just survival. This was home. The forest hummed. The stars watched. And somewhere, deep in the quiet of the wilds, the great hum sang on. Now with a new voice, small and strong, carrying the promise of forever.